Anya, it's great to have you here, and I want to pick up actually on the point Libby made about Germany. It was a pretty big deal to see them so quickly come out and say they're going to suspend approvals for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. What does that tell you?
It was great to be here, Kelly. I actually just got back from Germany yesterday. I was at the Munich Security Conference. The Europeans are as united as I've ever seen them on this particular issue. That's not to say perfectly united, but I also was really heartened by the German chancellor coming out today and saying that pipeline, which was about to open and bring gas directly from Russia to Germany, is going to be on hold indefinitely, which is a really strong signal to Putin that if he actually really goes into Ukraine in a real way, he's woken up NATO. He's made the U.S. and Europeans as united as we've seen them in years and years.
Right, which a couple of weeks ago, it looked like the opposite might be true. When the U.S. was first talking about suspensions of Nord Stream 2, the Germans did not necessarily underscore that point in quite the same way. So this feels like a little bit of a change in tone that now is having the effect you mentioned. And do you think it's also changed the tone coming out of Russia today?
You know, I'm not sure it's possible to deter Vladimir Putin. He is increasingly isolated. He surrounds himself with yes men. Some people I talked to this weekend who informally interact with him said, you know, there might be something a little bit off. So I'm not sure how much the international community can do to really deter his actions, but it is impressive. And I think the U.S. government and the European governments and NATO deserve a lot of credit. I think they've been handling this crisis just about as well as we can do so far.
Give me the best and worst case scenario for NATO in the, let's say, 10 or so days that we're facing.
Yeah, well, it depends a little bit on the best and worst case for Ukraine. You already see these two republics having declared independence, Russia moving in to, quote, support and peacekeep Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. So Russia now has four options. Just occupy that territory, number one. Two, occupy all of eastern Ukraine, which would be a significant escalation. And then, of course, three or four, you could launch air, missile, and cyber attacks on Kiev and other parts of Western Ukraine. Or four, you could try to take out President Zelensky of Ukraine and install someone who's more Russia positive. Very hard to predict where this leads. I think no matter what happens, you're not going to see NATO forces fighting on behalf of Ukraine. I think every government has been quite clear on that, and there's no appetite. If you look at the opinion polls in the U.S., unfortunately, most Americans can't even find Ukraine on a map. There's no appetite for going in with American soldiers to support Ukraine. But there is, I think, going to be a lot of supplying of weapons and materiel to ensure that Ukraine can defend itself. And of course, all of those sanctions that Libby mentioned just in the last segment.
How does Russia save face here if they do end up backing down in some way, shape or form?
Yeah. You know, I don't think they care much about saving face, unfortunately. One way would be to say, look, I just am supporting Donbass and Luhansk, these two breakaway regions, and everything else was just a military exercise. And then wait. That's very much Putin's playbook. Take one step, see what the international reaction is. And once things have settled down, maybe take another step. But ultimately, his goal really seems to be to destabilize Ukraine. And with that unbelievably historically revisionist speech, you know, ultimately reestablish the greater Soviet Union.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.